Little dirt you did, they ain't shit to the kid. Whoa.
Well, I screwed that up. I wanted to have the Nas song playing in the opening instead of my song, Nas the Truth. And then I realized that I had forgotten to turn on the audio clip. So yeah, I didn't have this nice intro the way that I would like. Damn it. It was gonna go in punching, right? I was gonna go in. It was fucking gotta get him, but no, that is not what happened. That is not what happened at all. Welcome to First Kick Seahawks, where I'm supposed to prepare myself for the first kick of everything, but you know how that goes. Whenever you set yourself up for the first kick of like music, or the first kick of the play, or when you first kick yourself up out of bed to get ready for the day, you think I got it all set up, and my golly gee, sometimes something just doesn't work. And there's a wonderful example of it right there. I also made an adjustment to my microphone. I noticed it might have been a little quiet for you guys, so I turned it up just a bit. And so let me know if it's a little too loud or if it's a little too quiet. I have this big old condenser on my microphone, and it tends to really filter out my voice and other sounds. And my dog, of course, gets very anxious when I'm speaking, so it's helpful to use the can, but sometimes it can decompress my voice too much. Anyways, off we go. I want to talk about the truth, because it's Tell the Truth Monday. If you've been following my channel, you know that I have a pretty quote-unquote rigid routine. I'm flexible on the hours and when I post them and when I stream. A lot of it depends on my health, and I try to stream when other people aren't streaming and wait for pressers and blah, blah, blah. And I really wanted to sit with this one today because it occurred to me we've kind of been through a lot the last 3 weeks. We knew it was going to be a lot. Like, okay, we're going to play this Rams team, and then, shit, we got to play the 49ers, the Cowboys, the 49ers. And it's going to be this really tight schedule. And when we get to the outside of that schedule, we don't really know what we're going to be, but hopefully we can get a win out of that, maybe two. Well, we didn't get any wins out of that, and we lost the Rams game. And so I think there's a lot of bubble popping. I think even I am at like some bubble popping, right? You've heard me refer to Shane Waldron as Winnie the Pooh and used Winnie the Pooh and used various analogies as to why I use that. And that's typically not my thing, is to insult people, but here we are. And I'm just having fun with it. I'm sure he's a great human being. I just, it's sports hate. It's not like my loathing current distaste for the way that Jamal Adams is behaving, which gets into the topic of undisciplined. And our team is just so undisciplined. And the way that we've been playing for years has been undisciplined. And it frustrates the hell out of, I think, everybody. And I think it frustrates the hell out of Pete Carroll. He even said earlier today, and I think I still have the quote up. He was asked by a reporter, I'm reading the transcript, and I think I lost the transcript. we moved the football on them and we did good things, blah, 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 blah. You know what? Can I just listen to it?
All of them. It's just a matter of how much they happen. But when things happen the way we prepare them, that's we need to do better than that. And that's.
This isn't a good stream for you guys. I'm sorry. I'm just going to move on. Pete Carroll was saying some interesting things today in the media about how he tries to put the guys in prepared situations, and how he keeps saying, yeah, we need to execute better. But basically, fuck, like, this game is hard, and there's always like a pull of how the game functions. And again, I wish I had the exact quote. There's a part of this game that I think fans struggle with. That is the part that makes the game fun. This is literally the best part of football, is that, oh my God, are we going to win? Oh my God, are we going to pull this off? Oh, we're struggling. That tie, that pull, right? That you need to have that desire to be in that situation and to try to overcome it. Emphasis on try to overcome it. And you have to hate losing, right? You have to hate losing. And you have to be like, well, winning just means that I learned another way to win. But I also need to correct a bunch of things. And it's this always this energy of competing. So he was asked basically like, have you ever played with a team that executes as poorly as this one? And he started laughing like, yeah, all of them. All of them is at some point or another executed as poorly as this one. And, you know, I'm phrasing it poorly. But, I mean, he's right, except for maybe sometimes during the LOB. But there was some times where Cam Chancellor needed to clear up some stuff he was doing covering tight ends. And, you know, Maxwell was learning some things, and Jeremy Lane needed to clean some things up. And, you know, our pass rush needed to fix some things on the running game, and Adrian Peterson charges down the hill on us. So there's always something. But mostly the concern I've had is those teams back then were disciplined enough within their own locker to yell at each other and fix it themselves. And this current 53, and it's been like this for a few years now, they don't seem to correct each other. And KJ Wright mentioned on his show that and this was a couple weeks ago, that he wanted to have somebody from the Legion of Boom go into the locker room. And when he was going to go into the locker room, he was going to pump everybody up. And G. Scott was like, but we already have somebody in there. His name is Bobby Wagner. Yeah, but Bobby Wagner, this is KJ Wright, Bobby Wagner's already been delivering those messages. They've already heard those messages. We need new voices in the locker room to inspire these guys. Which at the time I was like, no, I disagree. Because I believe that leadership needs to come from within as well. And I did a whole spiel about how our leadership on our team sucks because of the actions. You can be a blowhard, but if your actions suck, then you're teaching your players to punch other players in the face during the game and to lose your temper and throw tantrums and all this other crazy shit instead of working together. And KJ even commented on the post game that after a bad play to DK, he goes to the sideline and players come up to him and they're like laughing and trying to have a good time on the sideline. And he's like, what the fuck is that? And I agree. What the fuck is that? You're supposed to be in tension mode the whole game. You're trying to combat this tension mode. And as I was thinking about it, and I thought about this earlier, right? This isn't something that's coming to me now. Pete Carroll has this thing called All In. And he has people tap onto the sign. And he says All In. And this is something that he started in college. And I believe the story goes, he told all the guys, hey, we're going to meet out here on the field like after practice or after some game or something. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. We're just going to meet. And then somebody asked him, like, after the players dispersed, well, what are you planning to do? And he's like, I don't fucking know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I'm just going to wing it. So he goes out to the field and all the players are out there. And he looks across the street and there's the fire department. So he goes over to the fire department. He's like, hey, do you guys have like a really long rope? Like a crazy long rope. So they're like, yeah, I guess we can loan this to you, head coach of USC. Sweet. Thanks. Does that. And he makes the team play tug of war, where you put a line in the middle, one side, other side, pull the rope, try to get the side to fall across the line. And he just did it on the fly, according to Pete Carroll, right? He had some interview about it earlier this year. And then the players are like, he was like, so what'd you guys learn about it after that? Because they're all pumped up, right? Big aggression competition. We're gonna do a fucking tug of war. This sounds fun. And the gist of what he learned was all in. You got to go all in and pull all in at the same time to beat the other side. And so then that whole college thing was all in, and then he just took it to the NFL all in, and he had to always compete, which is always there, right? But that's more of a brand than anything. But there's something I've said for a while now about Pete Carroll, and this is something that I've commented on since about 2018, and it's something that I wanted to watch. How does he respond to this situation? Because eventually every single human being that finds success is going to be in this situation. From Michael Jordan to Tom Brady to Sue Bird to all of them. What happens when you outlive behaviors and messages and tendencies that have been working for you? And this is a more complicated question than I think people really think about. Because, well, he went to the Vic Fangio system. And then if you look, he started having Russell throw the ball more. But he was still, and then he went to a Shane Waldron spread scheme. But that's how you do things, not why you do things. I mean, and as I've said, leadership is not speaking out. It's your actions. And so, yeah, every other team out there is going to have their brand of basically always compete and we're all in. But you got to convince your players why you're all in. And so you also have to therefore convince yourself why you're all in. And we have to do that all the time as competitors and as artists and as workers or anybody, right? And it's even like when in relationships, you get that big dopamine rush, and then after the dopamine rush is gone, you have to go all in if you want to keep the thing going and work hard, because relationships are hard. And so he's doing this narratives, at least the ones that we're seeing, that are like 15 plus years old. And we have heard from the players that have left the building saying that the messages started getting old. And there is something to players not understanding the messaging, which is why they were tired of hearing it and therefore not thumping it into other players' heads. So there's that. But then there's also your identity needs to grow. You are no longer a Squirtle. You are a War Turtle. You are no longer a War Turtle. You are a Blastoise. Trying to lighten this up a bit. We evolve as we age and develop and gain knowledge. And so I want to bring this up to a book series, and I think they also made some movies of it. Did any of you read Where the Red Fern Grows? I think it was required reading in elementary school for me. Or maybe I read it and then it was required reading for me in junior high. Yeah, 1961 children's novel by Wilson Rawls about a boy who buys and trains 2 red-boned coonhounds for hunting. It takes place just before World War II. So, but this was written after World War II, clearly. And the story of this is the boy buys 2 hunting dogs, and he's really young. And he's like, I want to go out and I want to hunt raccoons. And I think there's like some contest. And he goes out there and he doesn't really know what he's doing. He doesn't know anything about dogs. He doesn't know how to train dogs. He doesn't know anything about raccoons. He doesn't know anything about being out in the woods or anything like that. But he's got the gonads. And he's got the joy of being with these pups. And he's going to train them his way, right? He's going to do it. He's going to do everything his way. He's going to get it right with these dogs. And these dogs love the fuck out of him. And they go out on their adventures into the woods where the red fern grows, right? Where all these ferns are out there that are red, and you can find all the raccoons bustling amongst them. And he's out there hunting and gets really good at it. In fact, he gets so good at it because of the synergy he has with his team and with the environment around him that he wins as a young kid. He wins, if I recall correctly. And it's this like very uplifting story of like a young spring of joyous potential bounding forth from youth into adulthood. And oftentimes when you look at these drafted players in their early 20s, it's like all this potential, right? And Pete Carroll's very good at taking potential and turning it into something. Where the Red Fern Grows, Part 1. Where the Red Fern Grows, Part 2, I think is Pete Carroll's problem, and I think it's the problem he's dealing with himself, which is why I've mentioned he needs to compete with himself. And I think a lot of players start to be like, okay, I'm tired of this messaging. You've set the roots for growth. Growth has established. Now what? Because you're no longer in the same place you were before. And so in Where the Red Fern Grows Part 2, what happened after this kid wins the contest, is such a good hunter, is he gets drafted to go to World War II. And while in World War II, traumatized, right? He gets shot in the leg. It's infected, so they have to cut off his leg. He gets sent back home a hero. And he was. And he's trying to figure out how to find himself again. Because things were going well, and then things were not going well. But he's back in his old environment, right? Everything's fine. We got the young offensive line and a bunch of running backs. We got a bunch of good defensive backs out here with Witherspoon and Adams and Woolen and Trey Diggs is a smart defensive back. Bobby's back there, and Jordan Brooks looks good. Got some good defensive tackles with Reed and Jones and Williams now. Like, why the fuck is nothing working? And look at where the Red Fern grows too. He's like, I'm in this place where I need to get back to what was working for me in life because things are falling apart. So what he does is he goes and he gets a couple of dogs and goes out to where the Red Fern grows, out into the woods again of his youth, where he found his success, and he figured if he goes there, it'll ignite some growth in him, because that's what happened when he was a kid. Is if you go back to where you were and where you grew before, maybe there's some potential. And he goes out there, and the raccoon kills his dogs right off the bat. And I don't remember what happens with the rest of the story, because frankly, right now it eludes me, because I read that thing forever ago. I read that thing longer than Pete Carroll. As long as Pete Carroll has been teaching the system, I've been reading it, because he was doing that all through USC while I was like growing up. So I've read this thing back when he was learning this system, and then as I adulted, he fucking kept on pushing this. You are always in the immediate now. You cannot be in the past. However, you can. Not literally. But if you spend enough time dwelling on the past, you make that your present, because you're not moving. If you spend too much time on your present, you have nothing to look forward to. So you just end up standing in place. If you only focus on your future, you're going to trip on yourself because you aren't dealing with the immediate now. All makes sense, I would like to think. If you only care about your future, then you're going to miss opportunities right now. But you still want to build towards a future. And you do that by establishing it in the now. Whereas if you were trying to establish the past, you were going to have the past. And unfortunately, the past cannot be replicated because the past no longer exists. But the future is unwritten. And I think for all of us, all human beings, it is very difficult to let go of patterns of behavior, especially when it's worked well for us. I'm not saying it's an addiction, but like we get this vibe that like, if I stand in this one corner of the room, we're going to win this game. Now imagine you're a coach. You're like, if we just do this behavior, if we're just all in, we're going to win this game. Why is it that I keep giving these messages and it's not working? Because you need to maybe move to the other side of the room and change your jersey backwards. I don't. What's happened is it seems like he's lost this locker room. And I think it's because he's lost narrative control. And I don't know what his narrative is right now, other than the same narrative he's always been spewing. And that's not necessarily his fault. I just think maybe if he were to look back in hindsight, he would say, you can't go to where the Red Fern grows with 2 dogs and expect the same exact outcome. And your dog might get bit and get rabies and die. So maybe go about it a different way, because this time you're not a child with all this energy and splendor and you don't think anything bad can happen. This time you're somebody who's trying to replicate an energy you had before. You can't do that. It will always be a shell. It'll always be a clone. It won't be the same. You need to harness a new energy. And I would almost say, like, go fucking find a fire department. Say, can we borrow a rope and get the teams to play tug of war? Like, let's try it again. And then if they say, I'm not. I was gonna say if we're on fleek, I don't know. They're old enough now that might have been the terms that they would be saying, right? Instead of all in, nah, we're on fleek. That's what they fucking are, right? Whatever works for them, right? He needs to understand that his environment has changed, and therefore he needs to change. He doesn't need to necessarily change his energy and things like that, but he needs to change the way that he talks about the game, the way that he connects to the players, and the way he leads them. Because right now, I think what's happened is he's gone full vocal leading, and he does go through the routines of actions, but he's not getting to the heart of the players, and they're clearly not respecting him with the way that they're acting. When he tells Jamal Adams, "Hey, that's not a good way to behave. Don't shit on Connor Hughes' wife's face." He's basically like, I'll take the post down, but I don't give a shit. You know, what's rule number one is protect the team. And I'm not saying protect the Seahawks brand in all their affiliates. I'm saying protect the people in your locker room. Protect your friends. Or if they're not your friends, protect the Warriors with you. As Earl Thomas said, what, you want him to be our friend? No. If you guys are true ballers, you should be constantly communicating. You should constantly be sharpening each other's tools because you want him to be better, because you're tired of him fucking up, because you want to win this goddamn game. So if you see DK Metcalf drop a pass or something, instead of coming over and laughing, you should be pissed off with him that somebody came and took his face and slammed it into the ground, right? Or something, right? If somebody's coming and sacking the quarterback, you need to come and get in that dude's face and fucking yell at him. And then the whole offensive line needs to be like a gang and just group together like a biker gang, just ready to just run somebody over. It needs to be a pack-oriented mentality. And right now, what we're seeing is a bunch of people that are not all in. They're all apart. And that's kind of what happens when you try to continue to live in the past. He's not saying I'm trying to reinvent the Legion of Boom or any of that. He's obviously trying different schemes, different ways of football. He's doing some stuff that he used to do at USC, right, where he did throw the ball around all the time. And it's not working. And there was something interesting that I commented earlier on this year. There's turnover Thursdays. But Geno Smith said something that concerned me this offseason. This preseason, he's like, "Oh, I don't call it turnover Thursdays. I call it touchdown Thursdays." Which defeats the entire purpose of why it's called turnover Thursdays. It's about taking care of the ball. So yeah, you want to score a touchdown, but ultimately you want to take care of the ball. And what's been our problem this year? Him not taking care of the ball. And we're just so undisciplined. And nobody's buying in on anything that Pete Carroll has said. And that's my dude. Like, I don't always agree with him. And I don't always like the types of coaches he grabs. But his philosophy is sound. The problem is, and this is the problem I knew he was going to come across, and I wanted to see how he deals with it, is how do you get from where the Red Fern grows through where the Red Fern grows part 2? How do you get from natural success, progression, and then not get in the cycle of trying to repeat that success? But not do it physically, but psychologically. How do you reinvent yourself and then do it again and then do it again, but also keep the same values? It's very hard. And I imagine it's really hard for somebody at his age, because not only do you have to do it, you then have to get the players to buy into it, and you don't know if they'll buy into the reinvention of yourself. I haven't seen him reinvent himself, Pete Carroll, at all. I think he's stuck. He's stuck with something that's worked for him for a very long time. So for good or for ill, he is stuck in that. But when he entered the NFL, he had the opportunity to reinvent himself. And I'm not sure he was fully aware of that. You know, that's why part of me wants John Snyder to take over his presidential duties, so he can have a little bit more control over hiring, but also so Pete Carroll can just focus on coaching and focus on those types of thoughts again. How do I get these guys like truly motivated and following behind me instead of seeing me as a tie? He doesn't wear ties, but you know what I mean. Seeing me as the executive in the building that's bullying them around. And when you look at the 49ers, yeah, they're still braggadocious, and apparently Kyle Shanahan said he would buy like a gift or like a Christmas gift to whoever got under DK Metcalf's skin and got him to respond, because they know how undisciplined DK can be with his emotions. And I mean, it took Fred Warner slamming his head face first into the ground for for him to finally get under DK Metcalf's skin towards the end of the game there. But still, that's some sway. That's some fucking sway from the head coach. I had never seen Pete Carroll do something like that before. I'm not saying giving a gift. I don't think that's legal or anything. So if that rumor is true, I think it was Michael Silver that said it. You know, there might be an investigation there. It wasn't like harm the player. It was get this guy pissed off, so he's probably fine. You know, it's not like Sean Payton and Greg Williams headhunting. I think it was Greg Williams. But, you know, there's never like this, okay, Wes Welker's going to be in the flat. Okay, Adams, your job is to hit this guy really hard and send a message to the rest of the team and get the rest of the team pumped up. There are no actions on the field that seems to tell the rest of the team how to play football, except for when Witherspoon's in. And they don't seem to be coordinating. And I think they're not all in. And I think that's Pete Carroll. And when you look at the 49ers, they are all in. They're playing old school. People keep saying it's new school football. No, this is old school offensive line, fullback, tight end, punch them in the face football with some cross blocks, and then we run some routes off of that, and sometimes some verticals. And it looks beautiful. It's very simple in the passing game, super complex in the running game, and because defenses don't know how to fucking deal with that, they're just tearing people new assholes. It's awesome. And you can only get that type of offensive line to function that way with a lot of discipline. You can only get a defensive front to be that good with discipline. Instead of people overshooting their gaps and stuff, they have to play very disciplined football. People need to wrap up on their tackles behind. Safeties need to play well. You got Ward going out, and they still play disciplined football with their corners. And you look at our team, it wasn't until we got Solari in that our offensive line looked disciplined. That first preseason game was night and day. We went from shredded fucking offensive line every game. Especially it looked good with Max Unger. It wasn't great with Russell Wilson and Max Unger and company. But once we got like past the Drew Nowak and fucking Justin Britt, I don't know why people thought Justin Britt was a good center. At one point, we had like less than 20 total starts amongst our entire offensive line. Week 1, it was a bad offensive line. And Justin Britt accounted for most of those, not at center, but at right tackle and right guard, which he was terrible at, so they moved him to center. It just so much undisciplined football for like a decade on that side of the ball, but the defense always really disciplined. Then Ken Norton Jr. leaves. Actually, definitely once Dan Quinn left. Dan Quinn definitely comes across as a disciplinarian. Ken Norton Jr. leaves. Our tackling goes to shit. And he's definitely a disciplinarian. He'd be known for chewing people out. Pete Carroll's not really a disciplinarian, is he? KJ Wright talks about how when he first came in, he was fucking ruthless. And so, I mean, maybe he's referencing all the people that left the team, like Hushmanzada. I don't think he needs to be ruthless. I think he needs to hold people accountable, and he needs to, by doing that, show the other players in the team, show the locker room how to hold players accountable. Because the way he has the team set up is, it's not my team. I'm trying to set you guys up for success. This is supposed to be your team, Woolen and company. Adams, this is supposed to be your defense. Where's your pride? And I'm sure he's had those conversations. It's just not getting through. And when you see them communicating on defense, it is sloppy. And we can talk about a Vic Fangio defense and all that, but ultimately, just about any defensive scheme will work if you get enough good communication and enough good players in. Just like just about any good offensive scheme. It's not ultimately football is really complicated, but it's not that complicated. Just get good players and talk to each other. If you have bad communication, the other guy's going to beat you up. If you got good communication, you have a good chance of stopping him. We have just such bad leadership from Pete Carroll down that's why I'm thinking that it might be time to move on from him. And that's a truth from somebody who's a big Pete Carroll fan. I actually just saying that, I got kind of sad. I kind of got really fucking sad. Because it's not that he's a bad coach. As I said, he was reaching a point in his career as a Seahawk president where he needed to not reinvent himself, but he needed to stop being his past self and become his future self. But I don't think he knows what his future self is. And it's hard to say that to somebody who's really old. How do you imagine your future self when your past self went to Super Bowls and your present self is struggling? And I don't think it's setting a good example for the rest of the team. And so what I want is what most people want, is they want to find that young kid, that young coach with that glint in their eye that's excited. And Pete Carroll still has that glint in his eye. Maybe it's a tear now because he's fucking frustrated after losing 4 games in a row. But the glint in the eye is special because have you ever seen somebody with a glint in their eye? You'll believe just about anything. That person says that they're gonna go climb Mount Everest. You might say, I want to see some pictures of that. The glint in the eye is a hell of a thing. And the glint in the eye means anything is possible. And so if your players think, holy shit, anything is possible, I just need to believe And I need to get the guys around me to believe too, because it's about all of us working together. Then you'll have something like, Mr. Irrelevant possibly tying the 70% completion record of Joe Montana if he does it 8 games in a row in his second year. The glint in the eye. Sometimes you just gotta be motivated to want to work together, to want to have the entire unit be the best of the fucking best. And I don't think Pete Carroll's voice matters. I don't think his, the way that he's hiring teams matters anymore. He's hiring coaches. I don't think the players that they bring in matters right now. I think it's the way he leads the team. They come in week 1 so sloppy. Sean McVay comes in week 1, never loses because his team is just ready to fucking go. We come out of buys so sloppy. Teams, other teams come out of buys ready to go because they spent the time getting rested and then preparing. Because I feel like if we were to get a bye before a Super Bowl, we'd lose the Super Bowl because the bye would give the other team an advantage and we wouldn't have an advantage because we lack discipline. So even if we made it that far through the wild card rounds and somehow made it past the NFC Championship game, we'd still lose the Super Bowl because we can't be disciplined past a fucking bye week. You see what I'm getting at? And that's kind of always been a Pete Carroll thing. Except for like that one season where he had all these guys that they lost to the Falcons in the playoffs. And then they spent the whole offseason communicating, doing OTAs together, of course. The DBs went to, I think, like Hawaii and spent most of the offseason running up and down the beach to strengthen their legs and learn how to communicate with each other running routes. They were all in on being the best defense that they could be. Russell Wilson, of course, then started getting the habit of meeting with his receivers in the offseason quite regularly, timing routes. We didn't have that with Geno and DK this offseason, but we didn't have that with Geno and Lockett. He was off selling real estate. We didn't have that with Geno and JSN. I think he broke his... Well, we didn't have any all in, we are working together. We don't just work during the season. We work 24/7, 12 months a year. Always competing. And that energy is gone. KJ Wright mentioned it, that like after practice, the linebackers would hang out together. And the way they would hang out together is that they would go watch tape. And it was fun for them to just go watch tape together. That was them hanging out. And we don't know what these players are doing, but it definitely doesn't feel like they're doing it together. Because it's not showing up on the field. All right. People have been saying that Pete Carroll decided today during the presser to, quote, throw players under the bus. What do you want? Do you want a disciplinarian? Or do you want a coach who doesn't give a shit? What if I just spent this time talking about how the players aren't communicating together? He even mentioned, the big 72-yard play he was asked about. It was over pursuit angle because we're getting too excited to hit this play. Undisciplined, in my mind. That's not throwing a player under the bus. That's telling the truth. He didn't call out Jamal Adams. You know who it was. Jamal Adams knows who it was. And I bet in Tell the Truth Monday, when they showed up in the middle of their meeting today, that was the first play that was shown. And you know who was shown to be fucking up on that play? Jamal Adams, because he's the safety. And he completely over pursued that route. Like he already knew what the route was going to be. The running route, the read of the running back. He just hit. It was just bad football, undisciplined for that entire block. They were trying to practice against that specific running play all week, and that's why he was so excited to hit it, and everyone was, and they just got their asses stomped because they weren't disciplined. And so, what do you want? Do you want a coach that says everything's going to be fine, we're going to work it out? Or do you want to say you can't over pursue there? It's almost done with the season. We got 4 games left, and then if we make it to the postseason because we win 4 straight and get 10 wins, it could happen. You know, maybe if Jamal Adams and company want their coach to not say, yeah, that was a failure on the player's part, he needed to play that better. Maybe you need to play that better. Because I have seen Pete Carroll not, quote, throw his players under the bus. It reaches a point where you just need to be honest. If you want to say throwing players under the bus, like, hey, my game plan was sound, we did everything right. The problem was they just didn't prepare right. That's throwing a player under the bus. If he was to come out and say that I had a good game plan, the players just didn't prepare, that's throwing a player under the bus. Instead, he's just like, yeah, we over pursued on that. It's not throwing anybody under the bus. That's telling the truth. And sometimes telling the truth feels like you're throwing somebody under the bus, but he's the goddamn head coach and the president of the Seahawks. And his players aren't playing disciplined. So if they don't want to be exposed, play disciplined. Which, to be honest, we still have a good team. And I kind of want to talk about why being disciplined matters and how it helps in the quarterback room. Remember in the Rams game? We had that lead. Then Geno Smith is getting sacked by Donald, and somebody comes in and just fucking cleaves his arm. Then the game completely shifts. Drew Lock comes in, and part of the quarterback's job is to maintain chaos, but our team has been so chaotic, play calling and stuff wise, that when Drew Lock came in, it immediately fell apart because he was doing poorly. And so you need to be able to have the other 10 on your team be able to play well if your backup quarterback comes in and doesn't play well cold off the bench. Seems fair to me, but if you're an undisciplined team, you're just setting your backup quarterback for failure. That was the first game where we lost. It was uncomfortable, but our quarterback got hurt, and then Drew Lock came in and played poorly. What happened 4 days later? We played the 49ers. We prepared for Drew Lock to start, and then Geno came in at the last minute ready to go. So that's 2 games out of the last 4 that we played where our quarterback was injured. Okay. Then he apparently was better last week against the Cowboys, and he looked like it. He was completing his throws all over the field. Fine. Then he pulled his groin. So then he goes up. Then against the 49ers, we have Drew Lock again. So let's take out that Cowboys game. If I was to tell you against the 49ers twice and the Rams, Drew Lock would have to play in 2 of those games, one of those to back up Geno Smith once he got hurt. And then the other was Geno Smith coming in on a short 4-game week after getting hurt. Would you say we would have a good chance to win those 3 games? I mean, like, you're asking your backup quarterback to go up against one of the best defenses in the NFL when your team is undisciplined. And the other part of that is you're having your quarterback who's injured come in against one of the best defenses in the NFL on a Thursday, not able to complete certain throws and things like that, completely unpracticed on an undisciplined team. These quarterbacks were not set up for success. And to be honest, that 49ers game, I think we did set up him for success with the scripts, and then it all just kind of fell apart after that. Pete Carroll mentioned that he wanted to run the ball at least 30 times in this game, and we only ran it like 20. And I would have loved to see that. But I think we started to fall apart in the second half because it's your backup quarterback. It's not supposed to be your pass-first offense. But there it was. But as we enter this Eagles game, if Geno Smith doesn't start because of his pulled groin, because a pulled groin can take a couple weeks. I don't know if you've ever pulled your groin before, but if you're running and suddenly your testicles pull in one direction, there's a lot of stuff connected down there. It hurts. I'm trying to alleviate it because this Eagles game, Drew Lock might have to start against the Eagles, and this is a get right game for the Eagles, who they don't want to lose 3 games in a row. They're now having to outcompete the Cowboys to win their division after they thought they had that thing in the bag. So yeah, we lost to the Cowboys barely, and mostly because we just played so undisciplined defense that this Cowboys team is like ahead of the Eagles. So the Eagles have to beat us. So we could maybe pull a trap game with Drew Lock, but they're going to come in and they're going to be like, we need to take care of this team right now. So we need to be so disciplined if we want to play this team with good trenches. They got Slay on the corner, and who might just pick up Drew Lock. He might just get picked off again because he underthrows things. That touchdown to DK was luck. Was lucky, not Lock, was luck. I want to see, because of this narrative of Pete Carroll throwing players under the bus, maybe he's just holding players more accountable. Like, okay, guys, you had Drew Lock starting out there and you played like that? What the fuck? Do you want to make the playoffs or not? How about you quit acting like children? How about you quit showing JSN that the way to lead is to punch people in the face? How about you not teach that to our young players? Receivers need their hands. Don't punch a helmet. For one, don't give free penalties. Jamal Adams punching Ferguson one week, doesn't get flagged. Following week, punches a player, gets flagged. Surprise, surprise, they're looking for you. Kyle Shanahan saying, if you can get under DK Metcalf's skin, I'll give you a present. Surprise, surprise, they're looking for you. It's because you're so undisciplined that on tape we can see, oh, we can get free penalties and we might be able to get you ejected from the game. We might be able to make you play bad football because of how undisciplined you are as a human being, just emotionally speaking. That's a Pete Carroll thing. I mean, yes, it's a Pete Carroll thing from leadership, but it's a Pete Carroll thing also to be like, you need to be fucking better. Sometimes you just gotta say it to somebody. And who's supposed to say it? It's supposed to be Pete Carroll. So I don't see that as throwing players under the bus. If we enter, quote-unquote, ruthless Pete Carroll era from KJ Wright, what would happen? We're leaving the Tell the Truth Monday energy into what ifs. Well, first of all, Geno Smith would be gone because of contract reasons. Jamal Adams would be gone. DK Metcalf would be traded. Tyler Lockett would be gone. Will Dissly would still be there. Fant would be gone for contract reasons. We'd keep Lewis. Phil Haynes would be gone. Bobby Wagner would be gone. Quandre Diggs is going to be gone. Yeah. I mean, just think about what he did to the defensive line. I was about to go through the defensive line, but he already did that last year. Fucking got rid of all of them. Just there would be half the roster, half the starters would just be fucking gone. So I think after this season, if you want some hope, we spend so much money in our safety rooms and we have terrible safety play. And you can argue, I'd rather you spend that money on the front. If you spend that money on good safeties and the safeties play good football, then yeah, you have good safety play and that helps you play good football. If you spend that money on good linebackers and they help you play good football, then yes, you're spending money on players that help you play good football. If you're spending money on good, right, he wants to stop explosives on the back end, and then he wants to plug running lanes with safeties. You do that both with safeties. So it makes sense that he want to pay for 2 safeties. And then he's going to run a 3 safety system because Jamal Adams can apparently be versatile down in the box. So he's paying for 3 safeties with Julian Love not making as much as the other 2. So Julian Love looking like the best of the 3 right now in his ability to tackle. Quandre Diggs not getting beat in coverage, but still having communication problems with Adams. He would just replace them with players that will actually tackle, that can actually play safety. If that's the cutthroat Pete Carroll you want, is we don't care how much we're paying you, Jamal Adams. Get the fuck off my team. Quandre Diggs, I understand that you were injured and you came back the following year and you're still here, but you're getting too old. Get the fuck off my team. That's what you want, right? You want that attitude. But then you want that money going, oh, we're going to invest only in the defensive line. Well, who's taking the safety positions? Well, let's keep Julian Love around. I think he's earned a second go around for another year. Maybe. Fuck it. Let's get rid of him. Let's go all in on getting a new free safety and a new strong safety to build around Witherspoon. Let's go back to a nickel, and let's fucking forget that we tried to get a safety that's only going to be blitzing and playing around the box who can't cover for shit. You know what we used to have? We used to just have a strong safety that played the enforcer role. Just fucking do that. Oh no, this is me talking about the past again. This is me getting past the truth. I talked about where the Red Fern grows. You're like, I just want an enforcer safety. You see how easy it is? You see how easy it is to get in a cycle where you're just like, I just want to go back to this mentality, to this identity that we used to have, but we don't have that identity anymore. Oh, I just fucking did it in front of you guys. I just pulled a Pete Carroll right in front of you guys. This whole thing I've been talking about. See how easy it is to slip into your old behaviors, and I want what we used to do. Wait, hold on, Camden. What have you just been talking about for an hour? At the very least, I want safeties that can play safety by tackling and covering the field well. And so I want some good youth. And if we get a really good first-round pick, it sounds like we're getting a top 10 first-round pick again. Y'all will probably say spend it on a defensive lineman. I say spend it on a safety. Witherspoon was a good pick. Earl was a good pick. If we can get another top 5 or whatever, right up, I'm not saying top 5, but if we can get a top 10 and there's the first overall safety or the first overall strong safety somewhere around there, and they're worth being up there, grab them. It's time. It's time to build in the future there, because what we have right now is the inability to play basic football in an effective way. And part of that also is I've said I don't think the Vic Fangio system and the way we're doing it puts our defensive players in optimal positions. That they have to make too many choices. There's too much for them to do. And so I don't like that for them. But at the same time, Jamal Adams is getting paid out the ass, and he advertised himself as the do-it-all safety. So I don't agree in paying for that type of player, but we thought we were getting it. Anyways, this was part, I know this has a different energy than I normally bring. Sometimes you need to tell the truth as best as you can. Direct. You need to be direct. And I was kind of like puppy footing my way through this whole stream, and I'm sorry about that. Normally I can just kind of move from one topic to the other, but I just felt like I needed to dwell with this. And I've been dwelling with it off and on for a couple years now. By a couple, I mean like a decade. Because there's certain behaviors I disagree with and some successes. So just watching Pete Carroll and how the organization functions and the whole history of it, psychologically speaking, is really fascinating. And I'm eager to see how he and the organization respond coming against the Eagles. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. Tuesday is coaching day. I want to look at these Eagles coaches, and I want to see what schemes they run and how they go about their business. Maybe what type of coaching schemes inspired them. So look forward to that. If you enjoyed this stream, or if it brought you any comfort or anything to look forward to or anything like that, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. It would help out the channel. At any rate, thank you so much for being here, and I will wish you all a very good night.